Angela from the blog naturallivingalchemy.ca. Welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to talk a little bit about one of my favorite plants, nettles, and I'm also going to share with you a simple decoction recipe that you can enjoy either hot or cold that is going to provide your body with some of the essential nutrients and minerals that it requires. So we're going to talk a little bit about the two ingredients that I have to go into this decoction. We're going to talk a little bit about a decoction versus an infusion, because actually this recipe does require both methods, but don't worry, it is super simple, and I'm going to walk you through the entire process. So let's talk a little bit now about the primary actions of concern about these two plant allies that I've chosen today. So our first one is nettles. And just keep in mind, if you're not sure what I mean by primary actions of concern, they're just the actions that we're concerned with. This is not to say that these are the only actions that these plants will do within the body. Okay? So we're going to first talk about the taste of nettles. Now, it is astringent. So while that's not necessarily a taste, it is more of a mouth sensation, we're going to call it. So an astringent herb is just going to tone and pucker and tighten up loose tissues or lax tissues. So it is also salty, okay? And it's that salt that is actually pointing to a high mineral content, okay? And it also has a subtly sweet flavor. And what that sweet flavor does is it helps actually build up the tissues in the body. It helps strengthen the constitution. And it can actually be helpful in cases of weakened organ systems due to malnutrition, dryness, or even atrophy. So those actions of nettles, we have it as a diuretic. So fun fact, doctrine of signatures with nettles. And if you're not sure what the doctrine of signatures are, I do have a video, 3 videos actually, on just breaking that down. But basically, it is the language of nature and how each plant is actually communicating with us its function. Okay? So if you want to check out the description box below, I'm going to have those videos linked if you want to check them out, as well as some other things, be it where you can get some of these different products for yourself so you can make these at home, as well as a full written blog article, which just goes over some of these things in more detail, as well as is going to have the recipe for our decoction and our infusion. So anyways, back to what we were saying. The doctrine of signatures of nettles is nettles likes to grow in moist conditions, and that is actually an indication that it likes to help with treating damp conditions within the body. Okay, so some other actions of nettles that we're concerned about today is it is an alterative, and that means it's going to help open the channels of elimination within your body, facilitating in the expulsion of waste products, as well as adjusting the metabolic function of the body, and that is going to be including absorption and distribution of the nutrients. And it also assists on the elimination of those waste products. Nettles is also a nutritive tonic and is actually one of the most nutritious plants we have in the West. Okay? Am I going to say it is the most? No, but it's one of them. So what that means, though, is it is rich in iron, protein, chlorophyll, vitamin C, dietary fiber, potassium, silica, and calcium, just to name a few. And actually, it tastes wonderful if you just throw some of the herb in your stews or your soups. Nettles, as we've described in the taste, is astringent. That is also an action within the body. I just really wanted to mention it within the taste because it is something that you might notice when you drink it, is your mouth might just feel a little, just tightened up and puckered a little bit. Okay? So anyways, what that's doing, right, is it is helping to tone tissues that have been weak or they are just too relaxed. Now, I'm going to explain what I mean about that. So we're going to think about any of your tissues in your body, and they're supposed to more resemble this. It is tight. It is containing what it needs to contain, and it is keeping out what it needs to keep out. But what if you find that your tissues are in a state of lax or relaxation? They might kind of more resemble this. So you can see that maybe things can get in, things can get out that aren't supposed to be there. By putting an astringent plant or herb in your body, it's going to take this loose, lax tissue and just pucker and tone it right back up. Okay. It is a very, very important thing that we need because we can run into a lot of health problems when just fluids are leaking from one part of our body into another. And finally, our last action that nettles has within the body is it is inflammation modulating. And that is because it is rich in chlorophyll. So those are the actions in the body that nettles can do. Where in the body does it like to perform those actions? Well, we're going to look to the salty taste for a moment. That shows you that she has an affinity for the kidneys and the urinary tract. And you could also say that nettles is working systematically on the water element within your body. And this means that it can be helpful in treating cases of edema and draining fluids from puffy joints. So it likes to also go, like I said, to your kidneys and your urinary tract. It loves to work on your blood and your circulation. It works on the liver and the connective tissues and your musculoskeletal system, as well as on your skin. Now, energetically, nettles is cooling and drying. It is a tonic and it is a stimulant. Now, some contraindications on when you would not want to use nettles is if you have kidney stones or you are experiencing an acute or chronic kidney disease. The ruling planet of nettles is Mars. The ruling element is water, as it does help work with the waters in our body. And the ruling principle is salt. Now, one thing I would really like you to keep in mind, I am not a doctor. None of what is on this channel is considered medical advice. It is simply for education and informational purposes only. Always be sure to consult your healthcare professionals before following any of my advice. Our next plant ally that I want to talk about that we're going to use in this recipe today is yarrow, the wounded healer's remedy. And what that means is yarrow has this way of just helping us face that part of ourselves that we just spend way too much time avoiding. And in that way, she can really assist in your soul's evolution and mastery. Who knew? Just as simple as taking these plants in your body and then paying attention to the thought streams that come up, to the emotions, to the memories, perhaps. And within that, you're going to find those growth points because remember, we grow through what we go through. Okay. And yarrow is a wonderful ally for that. So our taste is bitter, it's pungent, and she's astringent. The actions of yarrow is she works as an astringent, just drying up those tissues. She works as a bitter tonic, stimulating your digestion through the bitter taste. And she also has some carminative properties. So that's going to show us that she actually works on the entire digestive system. She also works as an alterative, opening up the channels of elimination in the body. And this happens through either increased output of urination or by opening up the pores and increased sweating. We got to get those toxins out somewhere. And those are two of the ways that our body does that. Yarrow is also an inflammation modulator. So what that means is no, it's not turning off your inflammation response, but somewhat like a dial, it is doing what it can to help maybe decrease the inflammation from any wounds, any burns, any mucosal disturbances to the joints, maybe inflammation like rheumatoid arthritis. You might want to look to something like yarrow and for those inflammation modulating properties. And finally, she also works as an antiseptic. And this works both internally as well as when you are applying her externally. Now, the places in our body that yarrow likes to perform those actions would be on the cardiovascular system. She works with the blood, increasing circulation while simultaneously staunching excessive bleeding. She also works on the digestive system, like we just figured out a moment ago with that bitter taste, with the specific affinity for the liver, the spleen, the stomach, and the hepatic portal vein, helping clear congestion from the body. She also likes to work on the mucosa, and this is due to the bitter flavor and just helping stimulate secretions. And she also works on the immune system, although this is in more indirect ways. Energetically, yarrow is cooling and it is drying and it is a relaxing and it is also stimulating, depending on where in the body she's going to go. Okay? Now, contraindications about when you would not want to use yarrow. It is an emmenagogue. So that means it could stimulate menses, so should be avoided in pregnancy. And also, if you have an allergy to the Asteraceae family of plants, I would also avoid yarrow then as well. So the ruling planet of yarrow is Venus, ruling element is fire, and the ruling principle is sulfur. Now, just a quick more recap on what I mean by ruling planet, element, and principle. I'm going to point you to a video I did called the Western Alchemical Map of Creation, and it's going to it will go into more detail about what I mean about those things. But just quickly, we're going to just think for a second. This is a Mars plant. This is a Venus plant. What happens is Venus plant can go into your body and help treat an excess of Mars. Okay? So it's pretty neat, I think. Now, for this recipe today, those are the two ingredients I wanted to talk about. In today's recipe, we're going to be using two different methods of preparation. We're going to be making a decoction, and then we are going to be infusing that decoction. Now, we're going to go briefly over what the difference between a decoction and an infusion is, and then I'm going to explain why we need to have these two different methods of preparation for this recipe. So, a decoction is an extract that is obtained by boiling a medicinal plant, generally in water. An infusion is an extraction of the chemical compounds of plant materials in a solvent, such as water, or in an oil, or in an alcohol. And these can be hot infusions like we're making today, or cold infusions, but that would be specifically reserved for herbs that are mucilaginous or have very, very delicate essential oils that could be damaged due to heat. Now, the difference between these two, when would you use them, right? You're going to use a decoction if you are using harder or denser plant materials like roots, barks, seeds, and berries. And this is because the cell walls are thicker and more difficult to just extract all those water-soluble constituents. Now, I understand because, we don't want to just say, we're not going to keep pigeonholing our herbs, is what I want to say. Now, I did say generally, yes, we would use decoction for a seed, a bark, or a berry, or a root. Okay? This is neither of that. These are generally leaves, but they have that really, really thick cell wall that I just mentioned. So you need to have the boiling, okay, to kind of extract more of those really, really, really rich minerals and vitamins that we're looking for within this infusion today. So typically infusions are used for flowers and for leaves. There is one last thing that I do want to mention before I just show you how to put all of this together. Now, because for our decoction, we're basically going to be bringing our herbs up to a boil, and then we're going to turn it down, and we're going to allow those to simmer for about half an hour. All right? Now, if you were short on time and you still wanted to make this, you could just infuse it all as an infusion and you could do it all as a tea. But just know that you are not extracting all of the mineral content that you would if you were going to spend the time to do a decoction. Okay? Still going to be beneficial, but it just won't be as nutritious as it would be if you took the extra time. But I understand we're busy and we don't always have the extra time. Okay, so enough about that. How do we put this together? So to make this decoction, what we're going to do is I have a pot right here that has 6 cups of filtered cold water. So what you're going to need to do, depending on how much you're going to make, is you're wanting 1 tablespoon of dried nettles for every 8 ounces of water. Okay, so I have 6 tablespoons measured out here, and I'm just going to put them in my pot, and we're going to go over to the stove, and I'll show you what to do next. Here we are at the stove now. So all we're going to do is you're just going to turn your stove on, and we are going to let this come to a boil, and then you're going to turn it down to just a simmer. You're going to put on a lid, and then you're going to allow this to simmer for 30 minutes. And as everything heats up, it is going to start incorporating itself more into the liquid. So don't worry if you find at first all of your herbs are just sitting on the top. Just keep stirring it. As it heats up, they are going to, like I said, just start to incorporate more. So now we have come to a boil. We are going to turn it down. I like to just give it one final stir. And then you are going to put a lid on this, and it is going to simmer for 30 minutes. Okay. And then I'll show you what we're going to do after that. Now that we have our decoction ready to go, I'm going to show you what we do next. Now, of course, if you wanted to simply just drink the nettles, by all means, do so. But I find by just adding yarrow and getting all of those other health benefits, it just makes this beverage that much tastier. So what you're going to do is we're going to take, you need a teapot, okay? Now, because we're going to be infusing into the decoction, I find it easier just to have a little setup like this, okay? And I am going to be putting in, it is 1 teaspoon of yarrow per 8 ounces of water. So I have my 6 cups here, and because we had a lid, we did not lose that much from evaporation. So I'm just going to put in 2 tablespoons, which is 6 teaspoons of our yarrow herb. And then you're just going to take a little strainer, and you're just going to pour your decoction into your teapot, infusing your yarrow. Okay, and then what you're going to do with your spent herbs is you can just throw those in the composter. So now we are going to allow this to steep for 10 minutes, and then I'll show you what we do next. We have now been steeping for 10 minutes. So all you have to do next is we are just going to take our yarrow out of our decoction. So now we have this double infusion, and you are ready to drink it. Okay, so now it is time to enjoy your wonderful infusion. Okay, so dosage for this is going to be 1 to 2 cups per day. You're going to want to refrigerate anything you're not using right away and use it within 48 hours. If you have it after those 48 hours, you'll be fine. But the medicinal herbs might not be as potent. Okay, this infusion might not be as potent if you just let it sit longer than those 48 hours. Okay, so what you can also do is you could add a little bit of honey, raw local honey, into your tea. Okay, maybe you find it is just a little bit too bitter, a little bit too herby tasting for your preference. Okay. Adding a little bit of honey, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. Mary Poppins is in my mind now. Okay. That is true. However, if you are going to be adding honey into this to maybe cut down some of those bitter flavors, those medicinal flavors, just know that by taking away that bitter flavor specifically, you're not going to necessarily get those same benefits on your digestive system as you would if you just left it and you could taste that slightly bitter flavor. All right, there you go. So why don't you comment down below and let me know what kind of infusions or decoctions do you like to prepare for yourself? And don't forget to hit that like button and share this video with anybody who you think might benefit or enjoy learning how to make a nutritiously delicious nettles decoction with a yarrow infusion. Okay, so also consider subscribing to the channel so we can spend more time together. And I have plans of bringing more recipes like this to you in the future. And you can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and we're trying to figure out Pinterest. Okay, so connect with me over there as well. And I really just want to thank you for spending this time with me together today. And may you find peace wherever you are.